What is going on, everyone? We are here and we are live, and thank you so much to everyone who is hanging out with us. I've been watching you guys in chat, just going absolutely nuts, and you guys are amazing. So thank you everyone for coming out. Welcome to Fuzzy Dice, your Dungeon Master show here on the Exploding Dice channel. Every Tuesday, we're here talking with great guests and awesome Dungeon Master chat. And I've got probably one of the greatest guests to talk Dungeon Mastering with. I've got my new best friend, Matt. He is right over here. Hi. And we'll everyone say hi to him.
Hi, happy to be here. I'm really excited to talk.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me, man.
Oh no, trust me, you're slumming it right now. So before we dive right into that, I just want to go over some announcements. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm usually great at announcing followers, but we've just had so many, such awesome support. I can't possibly announce all of them. So I'll read them out at the end of the show. We'll read all of the followers. But before we go into it, let's just get through some announcements. As always, obviously, this is the Fuzzy Dice Show. It's here every Tuesday, and holy shit, people are hosting and people are following. Every Tuesday, I have great guests. Who am I even? I'll get to who I'm hanging out next week at the end of the show. As you can see down below, and I always forget which side it's on, there's my schedule of all of the games that are coming up on this channel. We just started a new campaign on Sundays. We'll be getting to that. That's 8 p.m. Sundays here on the Exploding Dice channel. And also, I play Call of Cthulhu, and everyone says Matt is a little quiet. I don't know how to fix that. I will try. So let's... did I have another announcement? I think I did, but I don't remember it right now. So we'll go to them at the end. Why don't we just go straight into my guest. Matt, how are you doing?
I am good. I'm a little frazzled.
Yeah.
Comic-Con was a significant blow to, I think, everyone's energy level who was there. So, past couple days have been days of recovery and getting writing work done. So, good. Just a little tired, I think.
Yeah. One day I will make it out to San Diego Comic-Con. It's very hard when you're a New York guy.
Understood.
You know. But,
it's something you need to experience once.
Oh, yeah.
Just so you know what the absolute deconstruction of society looks like.
Yeah, no, it's so there's so much great stuff that happens out at San Diego. I definitely want, and Gen Con too. I will get out to Gen Con one day. I promise. I tell everyone that I will, but it's one of those things that I realize. Oh, I'm also broke.
I feel you, man. This is my first year going, and I've been wanting to go forever. So make it happen.
Yeah. So we're just gonna chill. I've got a ton of questions from you guys that you guys have sent in, both in chat and in on Twitter, things that you guys wanted to ask, and hopefully I have someone that will be pulling them out of chat. But I may have to go ahead and enable another mod because you guys are just going nuts with the questions. But we're gonna get to your questions mostly in the second half of the show, because before that there's a ton of stuff I wanted to talk about, and why not get there first?
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to just for you guys who may not know, I don't think there's anyone here who doesn't know. Matt is the DM for Critical Role and now Force Grey, the Giant Hunters. Are you guys actually playing the Storm King thing? Like, have you gotten into it?
No, actually, this was a purely original kind of small contained campaign that I wrote, based in the same kind of theme as Storm King's Thunder, as far as like the destruction of the ordning and giants kind of left into the chaos to restructure their society. And other than that, I was just pretty much just sat down with Perkins up in Seattle, and we just kind of fleshed out a story, and I broke out a little campaign for a bunch of new players and a couple old ones, and we're just having a good time.
And do you play? That's where that's great. I'm so bad at writing like original stuff. Because I'm an artist by training. I went to college for illustration, and so what I learned after that was I am horrible. If you give me a blank piece of paper, I'm terrible. I can't write. Like, I'll just sit there in front of it for a while and nothing will come out. If you give me a design brief, you give me something to do, like say, here, write this, I can probably do it. But on my own, I'm terrible. Are you going to get your hands on a copy of Storm King's Thunder? Because I heard when they were announcing that, and I'm definitely, I'm all up into that.
Oh yeah, dude. No, I'm all about it too. I got to see some of the concept art. Some of they only showed me a little bit. Well, I was actually went up to Wizards for a few days to flesh out the story for the Force Grey series. But little bits I saw already had me extremely excited, and I think giants have been such an intrinsic part of D&D since the beginning, and haven't really been given a chance to shine in recent years.
Yeah.
You know, the Underdark, the Demons, the Abyss, like Strahd. These are all great series of very important and very popular settings through D&D lore. I think it's really cool that they're taking giants and giving them a chance to really show how cool and how intricate that whole element of a campaign can be, and I'm super excited.
Yeah. Did you play was it against the fire giants back in the day?
No, I didn't actually.
Oh.
I read that after the fact.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, it's funny. I've gone back and read a bunch of old supplements because I prefer to homebrew stuff just because I just how my mind works. I'm the opposite. You give me a blank sheet of paper and I can sketch all you want. Give me a specific design and my brain goes blank and I can't do anything. So I actually roll better with homebrew elements than I do with modules or campaign settings. Though I have run them. Like I enjoyed the Expedition to Ravenloft 3.5 version of it. I ran that, pretty fun. But yeah, so a lot of the older modules I've gone back and read and kind of taken inspiration from in some points, and just to kind of get immersed in that history. But I didn't get a chance to play a lot of them. So
yeah, the thing of, like, again, it's very weird, and because I've talked to a ton of DMs on this show, and everyone has their own way of approaching things. The way that I end up doing it, and it's interesting, like, to talk to someone who's much better at homebrewing from scratch than I am. Because the way that I tend to work is, like, when I need to run a one shot, and I do a lot because I work with a streaming channel that, you know, I do a lot of one shots for them. They have a 3-hour show block, so ever since I started with them, I've had to learn to write, like, a self-contained story that fits into, like, a 3-hour block, which is not easy to do when you're like me, who is I'm very much the DM who I like to take my time. Like, if it will take me, like, we're playing in my current campaign on Friday, we just played session number 50, and they're barely level 5. Like, I will take my time to tell a story, you know, because I like it. I like role-playing, I like doing all that stuff. What I really like doing is, like, taking cool modules, like, ones with really, really cool ideas in them, and then reading through them and being like, okay, this is great, but it needs some tweaking here, and this part can be kind of removed, and this is unnecessary combat, or, you know, this enemy or NPC needs more screen time, so let's kind of take something from here and plug it in, and that's basically how I start sort of the bones of my campaign when I'm actually writing something new. Yeah,
that's actually one of the challenges I had with writing the Force Grey story was because I've been homebrewing for so long, and while I was familiar with, you know, the Forgotten Realms setting on a pseudo macro scale from playing the Baldur's Gate games, like Sword Coast, I know decently well in elements and from a lot of the Drizzt Do'Urden stories. But I never really got that deep into the lore of Waterdeep because it's just such a large city and there's such dense information about it that it wasn't until this prospect came up for the series that I was like, oh man, all right, I'm gonna have to really pull from a world that pre-exists, and people are going to be scrutinizing my details. So I did the best I could, but it was a whole different challenge than what I'm used to. But it was still a lot of fun to play in somebody else's sandbox again, especially such an incredible sandbox as the Forgotten Realms, man. Like that's legit legendary shit.
Yeah. I tried my hand at, first of all, I had a player when I was switching campaigns on my Friday game. This was probably about a year and a half ago. It was 50 weeks ago, so it was about a year. We were deciding what to play, and one of my players was like, man, I know everything about Forgotten Realms. Run something in Forgotten Realms. And I'm like, that's cool. I know nothing about Forgotten Realms. So
it's a little bit of pressure on you there. Like, you gotta run the game, because I know everything about it.
Yeah. It's like, I don't want you scrutinizing my details. Like,
why don't you run it then?
Yeah. Have you ever, now, I'm assuming this is, you've been playing with your friends for a long time now. I've been playing with my friends for a long time now. Have you ever approached any of them to DM, like, a one-shot or something? This is before you guys went on stream. You were doing that every week. But have you ever been like, man, I don't have anything prepped, or we don't have all our players here. Can someone else run something? And they're like, no, we can't, because you're the DM.
Not really. I mean, if scheduling came up and too many players couldn't make it, we would just cancel because free time was a commodity anyway, and people wanted to hang with their families and stuff. But for the most part, because other than Taliesin, no one else really had any experience running a game before or creating a story, and so no, they'd shy away from it immediately and be like, "Oh no, I'm good."
Yeah.
Which is why I was so excited that recently we had a week off of our main story, and Liam took up the charge to run his own kind of crazy.
Yeah, that was nuts.
It was awesome. He did such a great job, and I hoped, and I was glad to see that was a perfect example to the community that we all if you haven't done it before, you have a lot of trepidation and expectations that it's going to be super difficult to run a game, but it's a little bit of prep work, but it's not that difficult, and the dynamic that you create, the narrative with the players, is so much fun and so rewarding from the DM or GM side of the table that once you get into it, you realize this is actually a really cool, new and different experience.
Yeah, it's a ton of the questions that I have gotten. I've gotten shot at me, over the last 2 days have mostly been like, I'm a new DM, where do I start? And it's one of those things where like the first thing is, chill out. Like, it's not really that difficult. Like, you know how to play, you know what a game's supposed to generally run like. Just do it. Whatever. Pull a stat block and read it. But I did want to let this pass me up because Matt Colville asked what you thought of, if you watched, and what you thought of Stranger Things.
I binged the hell out of that.
Yeah, so did I.
I, of course, as soon as it launched, I had 17 people who've known me for years all text me saying, you need to watch Stranger Things, if anything, for the first 10 minutes. I'm like, why? They said, I'm not going to tell you, just watch it. And then as soon as the opening scene happens, I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Of course, text me. But I loved it. I felt that you could feel that the writers and the producers grew up and really loved Dungeons and Dragons and took a lot of inspiration from that kind of that friend group storytelling aspect that really binds together a social circle, especially back in those days, back in the 80s, and it was much more of a private kind of club feel. And I thought they did a great job not only representing that era, but just the overall feel of a D&D game for that age group, which if you look at it, really isn't that different from us being adults. We're all just fooling around and making believe at a table anyway. And then the whole story was great. I felt that the 80s nostalgia factor of it was really cool. The throwback soundtrack was fantastic. And unlike a lot of shows that build up a lot of kind of monster, alternate, dimensional elements, I find that a lot of forms of entertainment don't deliver on a lot of the promises they make. I felt this...
Oh, shit. I think we're having...
all the parallels to the Shadowfell as it progressed, so it was cool.
Yeah, my only qualm, and I only raise this because I mean I love the show. And the D&D stuff was what sold me like right out of the bat. My only qualm with the show as a whole was I thought it was a little bit plotting, like it was a little bit slow in a lot of areas. In that I felt like kind of like I was watching like a bunch of episodes of Fringe that had been mashed together, because it seems like you could dissect like a girl with magic powers and a monster that teleports through portals, and like you could kind of take these out and make like an episode of a sci-fi show like Fringe or something out of just that, and then they just sort of mashed them all up into one series. Matt Colville asked, I really liked it. Matt really liked it, clearly. Good D&D all around, I think.
Yeah, I agree with your point though on having so many things mashed in, but at the same time, because they presented the show in such a kind of cheesy throwback way, but still taking itself very seriously. The themes I felt didn't clash too much, and once you can remove yourself from the kind of narrative writer mind that I tend to get stuck in when I watch a lot of entertainment, I was able to just kind of enjoy it for what it was. But I think you make very valid points about it having a lot of concurrent themes happening all the time at once.
Also, I mean, I think it deserves a shout out for having not horrible child actors.
They were great. They were the best part of the whole show.
That's the thing. Like, it wasn't even until about halfway through when I realized, oh, wait, I'm watching child actors. This should be horrible.
Yeah, man. I'm going to follow their careers with a very, very close eye. They all deserve to be amazing.
There was actually one other thing, and I wanted to mention, because we were talking about Liam's one-shot, which everyone in chat was going nuts at. They were saying it was awesome. The one thing that I loved was that intro part with where it was basically just like everyone acting a voiceover session, and I was entirely hoping that the entire game was that. Like, I would have loved to sit there and just watch that for 3 hours.
We'll talk to White Wolf, see if we can develop voiceover the role playing game.
Oh man, what would it be called? Like voice actors and vampires. I don't know. Like, what do you pair that with?
Paycheck the Masquerade.
I like it. It's good.
Make Rent.
Yeah.
The RPG system.
No, I loved it. I loved it because it was like, it was one of those things where the reason that I thought that section was great and it was so interesting was because for me, and I'm sure every single person watching, like, we had no idea what was going on there, but for everyone at the table, like, it was so obvious that it was like a day in the life of all of them. And so they were so natural at it, but we're like, what is this? Like, does this actually happen? Are they just remembering what happened last Tuesday?
It was a pretty fun kind of heightened reality version, yeah. And
then last Tuesday, of course, the Cthulhu monster destroyed Hollywood, because that happens sometimes, yeah.
Which, for the record, since then, I recorded another project in the Warner Brothers lot where all that went down since that game happened, and I can't look at that water tower the same way again.
Oh man, what's going on? Brad Bodo, Encounter, everyone, bunch of my friends hanging out in chat. Everyone is having a good time, it looks like. So I had a couple questions. I want to get into some D&D stuff. The one question that I want to ask, and I'm sure all of the DMs in our audience right now want to know. So we all know what it looks like when you DM a game. We all know, how you handle running a session. So I want to know what's behind your DM screen.
Behind my DM screen is I have a little dice box, Wormwood actually, dice box, because we tout it because we like it. So I have that for my dice. Then I have generally clusters of miniatures of possible encounters that might happen, either right behind the screen or hidden right next to the left of me under the table. So I have them quickly at the ready. Mm-hmm. I have my bag of minis for all of Keyleth's possible beast transformations, which is like just a giant gallon bag of all the possible minis.
Yeah.
I have a couple boxes with wet erase pens in case I have to sketch something on the spot for our combat maps. Then I have my binder, which has all my story prep, a lot of notes on just the world at large, magical item printouts that I've created. It looks like a madman's scrawling room basically behind the screen. I have the classic 5th edition D&D screen behind the wood screen that a fan made me that I use in the show. So I still have all the different tables to remind me of the information on different status effects and all the really useful quick reference stuff to have for a DM. And then I write little notes that I tape to that of game reminders, things that happen, lingering effects or things in the game like the one deal that Vax made with one of the hags early in the stream. I have a little note reminding me that favor still stands.
Yeah.
I have a few other notes of lingering, world effects that may or may not come up, just so I have them in front of me. And then to the left of me, I have the open space for the map. So yeah, that's what the back of the screen looks like. It looks like D&D hoarders in a very small space on a desk.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly like. Because I DM online, and there's so much stuff I have to kind of look at. I'm totally interested in, like, I think I was going to ask this, and then I think you tweeted it recently about, like, what your notes look like. Mm-hmm. And that was what interested me, because I wanted to know, like, what you generally, like, how much you generally put in your notes, because anyone who knows me knows I'm horrible with notes. Like, I will sometimes write them. Like if I'm trying to plan a really, really big session, like with a lot of set piece stuff going on, I will write notes, but generally I won't, because I'm just horrible. Like I forget to do it, and even if I do write notes, I almost always forget to look at them during the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like I wanted to know, like, what, like I saw you had NPC names and like a little blurb, and then I guess something that works for you to remember like what their voice sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's and when you're starting out, especially as a new DM, you're going to overplan. It's just going to happen. You're not quite sure how much you want to have, and there is comfort in knowing that you have developed a lot of information. Even if you don't have all that information in your notes, just writing it out mm-hmm. and just typing out elements of the world building and the faction interactions and the plot hooks that you're planning to present, just fleshing those out even outside of your notes, helps you memorize and keep that information up in your head. And really, this is the most important factor of DMing, is your memory and your ability to improvise based on the bits of information that you remember. So yeah, like I have larger chunks of the world fleshed out. I have, like, you know, major cities and societies in Taldore in my notepad at all times that I can refer to if I need to. And the actual session notes generally break down to certain set pieces that I want to describe, to, you know, set a new scene that comes into play or a new setting they stumble into. I will outline bullet points of various important NPCs they may or may not encounter, with details on what information they have the players might discover based on how the conversation goes, notes about what they look like, notes about their general disposition, and, as you mentioned, notes to remind me what vaguely their voice sounded like last time they may have encountered them, or the intended voice when they do finally encounter them. And then I'll usually do like a basic block of just general bits of information that's available in the vicinity, not tailored to a specific NPC. That way, if they end up wandering off and going like, I want to look for the nearest guy with brown hair, and I'm like, well, I didn't prepare anybody like that. Sure, you look off to the right and you see a guy with brown hair. Like, I ask him, you, guy with brown hair, you know, what is the general, why is all the military so intense in this city? Then I can just go down to that one little cluster of random, you know, town-based information, and that one brown-haired guy could be like, oh, well, military is taken over, we're now in martial law, you know, and that way I have elements that are prepared loosely that I can tailor to the moment whenever it's required. So you'll see, like, at the bottom of that note, little shot that I put out there, I have a cluster of just general information about the town and Singorn and the Thorak incursion. That's just a something I can pull from if need be in that space. You know, half your game, if not more, is going to end up being improvised anyway, so you have to be prepared to just kind of go by the seat of your pants. So all the preparation helps, in my opinion. As much as you want to write helps, just know that a lot of it's probably going to go out the window.
I'm with you there. Now I guess this is interesting because when you write, like, I know we all like to do it, we all will write a set piece, just something really cool that we want to happen in our session. Whether it's like, specifically I remember you had that event where, like, the dragons came and fucked up everything. And that's a big set piece. You corral your players there, and then something happens and they have to react. But something like that, like, when you're writing that, did you basically have that in your pocket and be like, okay, whenever they decide to come into the city, we're just going to unleash this? Or was it like, were you sort of guiding your players to that event because you're like, okay, I kind of want it to happen this session?
I actually had all that set piece prepared for a number of sessions, just whenever they decided to approach, because really what triggered that event was them going to Uriel at the council and telling him the truth about how he had been basically deceived by Riskel Daxio this whole time and basically being sold out to a cult of Vecna and Whitestone. And it was the last breaking point during his rule that basically he decided he wasn't fit to rule anymore. And that appearance of him was going to be the centerpiece, that announcement that he was stepping down as sovereign and was going to be giving basically Iman and the Taldore region to the people and to the council to run, and that was going to be the moment that the dragon struck. So yeah, I had tailored that set piece as a bundle, if you will, because it makes a nice cinematic moment for it to occur. But the time in which that was to occur was very much driven on the party. So I had it prepared for a while, and I had it kind of in the wings for when they eventually got to a point where it would have triggered that series of events. So when they finally did, I was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
And release.
Yeah, I think, oh man, see that, like, that, I think that's my problem, is that very rarely do I get a chance to plan more than a session ahead, because it's like, you know, I just tend to fly by the seat of my pants. So, like, I will, more often than not, I will write something awesome, and then I'll kind of have to give them a little nudge in that direction, or use NPCs to guide them there and stuff, you know, just so I can make those cool things happen. I did want to go to some questions that I got on Twitter, because the first one that I got yesterday was from our good friend Chris Perkins, as he said, "Here's my question from Matt: what will you do story-wise when your characters reach level 20?"
That's a good question. A lot of it's going to depend on the players when we reach there. My intent, and I do have like an overall arc, planned for this campaign. I can say that it doesn't end with the Conclave. There are more things to be discovered and explored after this arc completes. There are whispers of it throughout the entire campaign.
Well, you can't just drop Orcus and Vecna in the same campaign and leave those hanging. That's what I'm saying. Like, there is...
Things tie together, and not everything will be encountered. There are many things that I make reference to in certain story bits that I just kind of, throw in the living world, but not everything revolves around Vox Machina. They are just one little thread of heroes in a much larger scale world. So, yeah, will Vecna, will Orcus, or any of these things that I mentioned in the campaign play back into the story? Maybe, maybe not. They may just be flavor to the world around them. When they found the Githyanki skull, will that play back in? I don't know. Who knows? We'll see.
I hope so, because Githyanki and Githzerai are awesome.
Oh, they're fantastic.
And Astral Devourers.
Oh no, dude! Astral Plane would be such a fun place to play. So we'll see. But my idea is, when they finish this major arc, they'll be close to max level. Maybe not exactly hit level 20, but close to max level, depending. Mm-hmm. And Vox Machina may fade into legend. We may sunset the campaign, have play an epilogue episode or two, and let the players decide what their character's epilogue is. Whether it be their surviving character or a new character that's popped up in the midterm since their old one died.
Yeah.
Because shit's getting real now. But I would like to see Vox Machina sunset and then take a little break from the campaign for a bit, maybe play a few other systems for fun, or some lighthearted games to kind of cleanse the palate. Then have all the players make new level 1 characters and start a whole new campaign elsewhere in Exandria, possibly in Marquette, possibly in Wildmount, possibly in Othanzia. But a lot of this campaign has been based around Tal'Dorei, and I think a lot of Tal'Dorei has been shown and explored. I would like the next campaign to kind of be helmed in a more varying cultural place in the world. Othanzia is definitely more cold and Nordic and ancient.
Mm-hmm. I get you.
Marquette is more kind of desert, rocky terrain, kind of Middle Eastern flair. Wildmount is a little more kind of North Asian, Prussian, East European. And so these are all different facets of the world that the players haven't really got a chance to see very much of at all, that I think would be a great place to start a new campaign. So I don't foresee us going into like levels 20 to 30, partially because that doesn't exist now, though we could push into boons. There are some great epic level material that's been released on the DM's Guild that some people have homebrewed that look really, really good. But I think we've been playing with these characters for 3. At the time, it'll be probably like 4+ years. It might be nice to give the players an opportunity to create and explore and have fun with all new characters.
Have you considered? And this is something I always push, because I always want to get every DM's perspective on it, only because I think it's probably one of the best ideas. I know you had your time in like Pathfinder 3.5, but we all know like the kind of rocket tag that the high levels of those systems turn into.
Yeah.
But there was this amazing invention for 3.5 called E6, where the highest level that players reached is level 6. And what that meant is basically you never hit those ridiculous levels. You can still, like the way I kind of redid it for Pathfinder, I reserved level 7 and level 8 for like really, really powerful monsters, but the highest, like, because the weird thing is, like, when you really get to those high levels, you're kind of in a point in D&D where you're never going to see another human enemy again.
Yeah,
because they don't have like player levels at like 12 player levels behind them. But E6 changes that, because the highest level that anyone can reach is 6. So you will always sort of be in a position where even theoretically a group of bandits could still be a challenging encounter. But the thing that's interesting to me is that way the players still gain feats, like they still level up and gain like feats and stuff, so their characters can grow, just not like the numbers that they hit with. And then you could, in theory, if you went all the way through a campaign, into the epic level challenges, like they fought the big bad guy, the campaign's over. Now, in theory, they could just sort of pick their characters up and start wherever they happen to end up, because they could just start a new campaign, because they're not level 20. Like they're not like the most powerful things in the world. I really like that because the campaign that I'm running or I'm just starting right now is sort of a traveling campaign. So the players start here and they're going to get on a caravan and go across the world and end somewhere on the other side of the world. Mm-hmm. And when they do, it'd be really cool if, like, oh, now we're in this sort of Asian culture, completely different from where we started, and we want to explore more of this, more than what we got in just this. And there's all kinds of countries and stuff here. What if we just we ended this campaign and then we just picked it up, but with the same characters, and we can go on and do something else? Because that to me is like, that is awesome as a DM. But
no, I like that.
Yeah, but I know a lot of players, may get to that point where, like, oh, I've been playing this character forever. I want to do something new. I don't know. Some DMs want to, they want to start something new.
Which I think that's. I mean, it's an important choice for the DM to make, but I think it's also something you have to gauge the players with. The players really love their characters, and they still feel like there's more they can really explore and extract from following their narrative. Then sure, yeah, continue on with their story. But if your players are like, all right, man, I've been the same monk for like 7 years.
Yeah,
I'm kind of done with them. Maybe give them an opportunity to try something else, for a form of longevity, and that kind of plays into the epic level stuff. I like the idea of stopping around level 20 because your characters are still extremely powerful and can do some crazy shit, but you're not god hunting, on a week-to-week basis. Epic tier stuff gets to such a scale to me that can be really, really interesting for like a one-shot or a 2 or 3 game arc. But as far as continuing a campaign from level 20 to 30, it loses the elasticity. You start going into basically God of War mode, where you're just like, I'm murdering everything that created the cosmos because I can. And that's fun if everyone acknowledges and embraces the fact that that's the point of the game. We're just going to go kill gods for a weekend. That's totally fun. But for like a long-term campaign, it can get a little grating on the storytelling aspect for a DM, and I can see it not as fulfilling for long-term storytelling for a DM in campaign. That's not for all games, of course. That's just from my personal sensibility. I'm sure there are many campaigns out there that can kick the ass in that realm, but for me, I don't know if it has the same draw.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and also like it's interesting because that whole E6 idea it's weird. Don't like I've done it before. Just try approaching your players, like the next time you're starting a new campaign, just try and ask them if they'd be willing to give up the concept of character progression. They will almost certainly say, no, I want to level. Because they like it, they like that, they like killing things and getting stronger.
Yeah, the customization, the capability of feeling an actual, like, physical map to the progress you've made in the game and things to look forward to in the future, that is part of it. And while there is a great improvisational narrative, it is still a game. And God knows I've made plenty of PC characters just in my free time since I don't really get to play them. Just to have fun building them and see what kind of crazy combinations and weird themes I can come up with. So I feel like you need a very accepting and experienced group to really embrace something that steps away from the usual advancement system. I don't think my players would be up for it because they love leveling up too much. I'm with you. It's a cool way of doing it. I think it definitely requires a little more of an experienced campaign of players than probably the one that I'm running.
Oh, thank you, Unmade, for rating with your awesome followers. Mike, you are awesome. So we're rolling over to the halfway point of the show, and I've got a Google Doc right now with like 1,001 questions that people have been asking in chat. But while I'm kind of getting ready to go through them, Timmy in chat asked if you had heard about that campaign that was running for like 35 years.
I've heard of campaigns that go for a very long time.
Yeah, no, they just ran an article about one that was going for like 35 years, same characters, something like that.
That's okay. I'm gonna need to read that article.
Geek and Sundry has it.
Is it?
Yeah, I think it's on Geek and Sundry. Yeah.
I should probably read. I
just assume they run everything past you.
No. For free time for me to read is usually at like 3 a.m. on my phone in bed. Okay, I'll have to go and read that. But like that to me is so cool and it's so awesome. And I don't know if I'd ever have the temperament for that. Like I've nothing but the utmost appreciation and respect for that, and I couldn't.
All right, so let's dive into these questions because I want to try and get through as many as I can because I got so many, and I'm so sorry if I don't get to your questions, guys. The ones that you were asking in chat here, there's only so much time in the day, and there are so many of you. So Tuck Roll from Twitter asked, "What?"
Tuck!
Yeah, she sent me a message saying, "What mistakes did you make as a DM starting out, and how do you fix them?"
Oh man, so many. I make mistakes today all the time. It's part of the fun. It's an imperfect process, folks. So don't feel down on yourself if you fuck up in your game, because that's part of it. It's a very big part of it. I mean, mistakes involve not understanding magical item balance sometimes, and giving out items that are either too weak and not useful to certain characters or anyone in the group, or conversely things that are way too powerful and end up overbalancing one player and severely minimizing some encounters you intend to be good, or conversely making other players feel like they're worthless versus one player. And those things just come with experience. The way you fix them is by finding narrative reasons to eliminate those mistakes. Like if you give out an item that's way too powerful, you're like, oh shit, then maybe that item begins to exert interest in returning to its former master, who is maybe not so nice. Perhaps you have a Craven Edge situation where it begins to try and corrupt and drive its owner to murder. Perhaps you have a situation where the item itself only has a certain number of uses before its magic is expended. You can find ways to narratively kind of redact mistakes you've made in that regard, without feeling like you're robbing the player straight up, like, no, that's too powerful, I'm taking it back. That makes like a DM versus player dynamic that you never really want in your game.
Have you ever had a player not want to give something back? Have you ever had to take something back from a player?
I mean, I've given out items in my earlier days that were too powerful, and then my first instinct was to go ahead and just make sure I gave equally powerful items to the rest of the party. But when I was playing second edition, when I had a party of three of my friends were playing. One was a grandmaster longsword user, the second edition. Another one was a ranger with the archer kit, which was broken as shit, and a third that was a thief mage. And they took out a waking adult green dragon in one round, just the archer practically by himself, because he had min-maxed to such a point that he had so many arrows that were all so magical with this one bow. And that's when it really hit me. I was like, okay, I got to reel this shit in.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly. And so I put in a circumstance where there was a rival group, a rival party of heroes, but really kind of unscrupulous individuals that were jealous of the ascension of these three characters. So they spent the entirety of their effort and energy in trying to rob them of their equipment, and basically left the players with nothing. And thus, the storyline was then trying to hunt them down and reacquire the items they had, which was its own narrative tale. And by the time they had gotten the items had either been corrupted or expended to some degree, or at least they had earned that level of power by the time they had reacquired all their equipment. That's a way to do it. Other mistakes I've made, and I'm trying to make it fast so we can get to more questions. Encounters that are way too powerful and end up killing everybody. You realize pretty quick into an encounter if you've done that. Yeah. When all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, I've wiped out like 2 of the 4 party members and monster's still at like 2/3 health. That's when you can start bringing in, and for the first couple times it's okay to bring in like a Deus Ex Machina and to have, an ally come in and aid them. That's like, shit, get behind me, run. Or have, the monster all of a sudden realize, if it's an intelligent creature, realize its dominance and then stop fighting and be like, now you know what I can do. You work for me now. And now the villain is basically forcing the party, if it wants to survive, to do its bidding, and now their story is about trying to escape from under its thumb, in a way that'll cause them to survive. So you can try and find narrative ways to avoid that TPK if you're inexperienced and the party's inexperienced and you don't want to just ruin everybody's good time and be like, well, sorry, everyone's dead, come back next week. I wouldn't recommend that once you've been playing for a while, because the threat of death really is what drives a lot of the real sense of danger and accomplishment when you don't die in a really dangerous encounter. And that's why I always implore DMs and players to understand that you can always flee. You can always come back later. You can always prepare once you have more information about what you're up against. Sometimes you may have to leave somebody behind, but that makes for really cool story elements in the future.
Yeah, I did want to touch on this just very, very briefly. One of the mistakes that I made real early on that I have since tried to fix, I think my mistakes real early on had a lot to do with not conveying information properly. Like, I was I would put a story out there, but I would just kind of assume that the players would go through the sort of detective steps to unravel the thing, the clues and stuff. And then I realized, no, you know what? They will, most likely what'll happen is they'll pick up a clue and they'll just stare at it for an hour and be like, why can't we figure this out? And it's like, because you should probably open your notes and see what else you wrote last week. But so what I've since made sure to do is always have present more information than I think I need, and if possible, always have an NPC on standby who can explain things.
No, that's great advice, and I've made that exact mistake many times as well. And it's not that you're overestimating your player's capability, but they don't have all the information you do.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't realize that that what you think is a cool kind of slow drip story release element can leave the players to be just wildly guessing in every direction with no real sense of purpose. And so be prepared to give more information than you expect, and sometimes just that little bite will be enough to drive the players in the direction you want them to go. And if not, you know what? You're all there to have fun, even if they don't unravel the extensive narrative that you've built up in the way you thought you did. Ultimately, you're all there to have a good time, and you don't want them floundering for too long.
Timmy says he sent you the link on Twitter, as I'm sure like 20 other people did.
Awesome. Thank you, Timmy.
The next one, James the Jew says, of all the story writing you've done, what process do you have to edit, make cuts, and stuff? I'm assuming after the fact. Like, do you ever, like... Do you do what I do, which is basically you throw a plot element out there, see how the players react to it, and then kind of fill in the details afterwards? Or do you like to make sure that everything is like, you don't really, as polished as you can before you give it to the players?
I definitely don't polish it. I tend to develop plot elements halfway, enough where I can tease and build and kind of begin to foreshadow or draw in the party to a cool story element. And if they're not taking to it, or they find a way to circumvent an aspect of it early, then I don't feel like I've, lost all this time in it. Conversely, I really like the idea of the players, unbeknownst to themselves, collaborating with the way your story's being told. The whole Briarwood storyline, I had a lot of early elements of it fleshed out, but it wasn't until I began to see the reactions to the party, their investment when they first met the Briarwoods, to the arrival at Whitestone and the subjugation of the people that live there. That there were a lot of elements there that basically were reactionary to how the players were acting and reacting to each little piece I meted out. And so yeah, I mean, collaborative storytelling isn't just in the moment, it's also reading what things your players are resonating with, what things your players are getting invested in, and focusing more on those aspects than anything that you're like, well, I really want them to go fight this three-headed Cerberus, but they're not taking the bait. Then just forget the Cerberus and focus on what it is interesting right now. Who knows, maybe you can marry the two down the road.
Yeah.
But yeah, I develop enough where I feel comfortable going into the story that I can improv around it and guide the players towards what would be, I think, a cool story element. And then usually after each session I'll go back and tweak and further develop based on the choices they made. Because it also shows that the players have really agency and can shape the story and the world around them based on their actions, which is great.
Yeah, like I said, what I tend to do is I tend to come up with an idea and throw it into, I'll throw it into the session, and then the players will be like, what? Wait a minute. And then I'll be like, shit, I forgot to square this with all my other notes. And then it's the process of linking things together, or when the players ask you a question that you hadn't prepared for and you just kind of make up an answer, and somehow you're able to sort of spiral that into a thread that helps you tie everything together. My players think I'm a lot better at it than I am. I just really, if I had a dime for everything that I made up on the spot, then turned into a plot element after that.
Dude, exactly. And let me put this out to all you new DMs that are watching this. Most of what a DM does is smoke and mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
Half the time or more, you don't know what the hell you're doing. You're just going along with it and trying really hard to pretend and act like you know exactly what's happening, and the players believe it, and you all have a great time. But in the back of your head the whole time, you're like, I don't know what's going on. Okay.
I hope they buy this.
But take notes. Jesus Christ, take notes during the session. If you make up an NPC, if you throw out a plot element that's completely improvised and they link onto it, write down things to remind you later, because they're always going to come back to it when you don't expect it and don't remember it. they'll be like, "Oh, I'm gonna go talk to that one guy, Steven, who was running the barn racket, selling off the goats." And you're like, "That was 7 months ago. I have no idea what the hell." What? So you want to make sure that you just take notes on everything that comes up in a session, especially if it's improvised.
Yeah, there was a long time ago I was playing with one of my players. He had just joined the campaign because we had actually changed campaigns because he had to leave to deal with family stuff, and we didn't want to continue them when we were playing without him because he was such a big part of our game and he was a good friend. So we started a new campaign and he actually came into it later, and he was playing a Pathfinder occultist. So he like picked objects up and he got like a mental image, like a vision of something that happened involving these objects. It was really cool, and what it let me do is it let me sort of give him this in to the party, like he could get a vision of them. Okay, so fast forward, he picks up he picks up a necklace, and he gets a vision of a young kid, like from the eyes of the kid, and the kid's getting like struck down by an adult, right? And then he never figured out what that was. Fast forward a couple months later, and there's like riots in the city, and people are hunting down these immigrants, the Shoanti, the kind of Native American barbarian things. And I said, like, there was a murder of a young kid that was beaten to death, and he's like, oh, everyone's like, oh, that's what you saw. And he's like, wait a minute, I couldn't have seen that because I only see things that have happened, and that was in the past, and it hadn't happened back then. And I'm like, shit, you're right. But wait a minute, don't you remember that when you came into the campaign, you had also seen a vision of the future, and that's how you got to the party? And he's like, oh yeah, and I'm like, literally, it was just something I had forgotten, but
saved.
No, he's like, yep, no, you're right. No, that makes sense.
That's half your job as a DM, is justification. You're just justifying things that have happened, even if it, in the moment, doesn't seem like it should make sense to the players are questioning it. You have to try and justify it and sound like you're completely 100% behind what you just justified.
Yeah, no, definitely. I had a question. I have a question here, but I wanted to ask something. I wanted to talk about something before it, and I totally forgot what it was. So I'm gonna move on to the next question.
Good.
Yeah. Someone, Bike Foolery on Twitter, he asked me, where are the metallic dragons in Critical Role?
They're in there. They're in the world. Players haven't encountered them that they know of.
Yeah, he says surely they should be concerned about the conclave of dragons and whatnot. So, is there like a metallic dragon uprising that's in the works?
We'll see.
Maybe.
There are metallics in the world, most definitely. Dragons, for the most part, at least in this world, haven't made themselves as prominent, partially because they're largely hunted for their magical essence, for body parts. Like the existence of dragons that are out there either have to be really powerful to really kind of hold themselves up. That's also a challenge to a lot of people that want to have that title of Dragon Slayer. So in this world, at least, a lot of them keep low key until the Chroma Conclave struck. But that level of power, that union of powerful chromatic dragons, is not something you can just charge blindly, no matter what your power and intelligence level is. So take solace knowing that there are many, many, many things in the world that are all currently paying attention to what's happening on Tal'Dorei right now. As you saw with Singorn, this whole time has been preparing, gathering information, preparing for their own eventual attack on Iman. Vox Machina isn't the only group that have their eyes on the Conclave at the moment, and there are definitely metallic dragons in the world that probably are equally as concerned.
All right. I actually I did remember what I want to say, and this was a personal question because you being a voice actor, one of the things that I figured I'd get your opinion on. One of the things that I struggle with as a DM is a lot of my NPCs, the ones that are of the same type, like unless I try real hard, all the guards in my game will probably sound the same. Is that a thing you have to consciously fight against?
I do, and I forget all the time, especially if it's moments you aren't expecting. Everyone has their kind of go-to voices if they, try to. Even me, I do this for a living, but, if I'm caught off the spot, I'll probably default to like one or two classic standby guard voices. Usually lower class British, if you long enough. Yeah, certainly, it's this way. That guy pops up a lot in my game, because it's just what's there.
Yeah, we had a joke on the first episode that was like, all guards went to the kind of the Michael Chiklis school of acting. They're all down here.
Maybe because it's all you think guard, you think generally lowborn.
Yeah.
But it has been shaped by military training and arms training to the point where they're probably gruff, they probably stink, they don't get paid a lot, and their job is to for the most part, day in and day out, is just to beat up drunks that are causing ruckus in local taverns or getting rid of ruffians in the streets. So yeah, they all kind of fall in that pocket of rough and tumble, I hate my life type characters. But yeah, for certain NPCs, I try my best to try and distinguish based on the society they're in, to try and make it seem lively and different. And I try and maintain certain dialects to different regions or different cultural regions. You've seen a few, and certain people in the world of Exandria that come from different places, like Jarrett, who's one of the guards of Greyskull Keep. He's from Marquette, and Marquette definitely falls into more of a Middle Eastern, pseudo-Italian, that kind of Eastern European, Middle Eastern realm there. And so the characters that come from there, they'll sound a little different, but I have to make an active choice to write that down next to their notes to remind myself when they do occur that, oh yeah, that's right, this is their flavor. I want to make sure that they stand out so the players will remember them going down the line.
Do you have a favorite character, nationality, or accent that you kind of go back to? Because I know mine.
I would say my favorite is still the Scottish brogue. I love dwarves, and I know it's very hacky to make dwarves Scottish, but goddamn, it's what I grew up with, and I love the Scottish brogue, and I love dwarves, so I'm going to do it as much as I can when they occur.
Yeah, no, I think everyone loves dwarves, and actually, it's so weird, whenever, the only reason I don't like doing a dwarf voice is because I feel like it's so hard to have a dramatic scene, and then, bust out with, that jovial Scottish accent, it almost certainly will diffuse the drama in any scene.
Which that is when you start working on finding ways to make it less jovial. It's very easy to bring a boisterous Scot to the line when you're a big, happy dwarf. But then you just take the energy down a bit. You just keep it calm, keep it even keel, and in the same degree, you can make that same jovial voice every bit as nasty and dangerous as you want. So you just got to practice that thing, bringing the energy down best you can, and slower. The slower and more methodical you work with your words, the more important the dialogue sounds, and if the character is supposed to come across as a little threatening or dangerous, that definitely elevates that presentation. It's the difference between talking like this and talking like this. It's the same words and the same tone, but as soon as you punctuate and you take your time, it suddenly has so much more weight, worth, and you're listening to everything I say.
Yeah, everyone's going nuts in chat, by the way.
Cool.
Someone Marvin on Twitter. Marv Hells, he says, question for both of you if you don't mind. What do you guys do if you get writer's block?
Step away for a while. Take a walk. I honestly, for me, I go dancing is a big thing for me. I think physical activity is a really good way to get the blood pumping, the brain moving, and dancing for me, at the very least, is a nice merger of positive energy, music, physical activity, and removal from your usual day-to-day trials and tribulations and mental cycling. So I find that's really helpful for me. But everybody has their own methods, and if you don't have one, then that's something you could try. Or just having a nice walk in nature helps too for me.
Yeah, a lot of people tell me they'll watch a movie, a nice fantasy. For me, a good way to get to get creative juices pumping, or just reinvigorate my desire to tell an epic story, is just either watch one or all of the Lord of the Rings movies, because why not? If you're gonna watch one, why not watch all of them?
Yeah.
What I'll do a lot of times is I'll go back to my collection of old modules and stuff like adventures, and I'll just read through them, and I'll look at the artwork, and I'll read the encounters and stuff, and I'll just keep until I see something that interests me, and I'm I can there's an encounter on the docks here, I can use this.
Yeah, and actually on that point too, what's really, really cool is if you get really bad writer's block, you have 30 plus years of Dungeons and Dragons or role-playing game plot hooks that have been developed and outlined, and countless edition Dungeon Master guides, online RPG forums, pamphlets, modules. There's so many just lists, just extensive lists of 1 sentence or 2 sentence plot hooks. And even just reading through those, you might pick and pull different elements that inspire and be like, oh, actually, that's kind of cool. If I were to use that with this faction, or, if this creature was this creature instead, that would be a cool encounter. Those are really cool places to kind of get your creative juices flowing for both stories and combat encounters too.
Yeah, it depends what you're blocked on. If you're blocked on, you can't I can't figure out how to progress my plot. Then maybe I will. I'll do I'll step away from it for a while and I'll be like, okay, think of something else. If I can't figure out a way to deliver this this information via NPC, one of the things that's really worked for me, and I don't know if you've ever done it, is when I'm driving at night, I will find myself just monologuing as some of the villains in my campaign.
Oh yeah,
totally. I'm thinking about an encounter and I'm just sort of monologuing. I'm just saying what I wish I could probably say in the session, and I will not actually, because I'll forget all of it. I'll use all the best lines in my head, but that's always a good way for me to kind of figure out I got this idea of how I want to sort of approach this character and this.
That's a great technique, and I use that for a lot of voiceover stuff, but also for campaign stuff where I talk to myself when I'm alone far more than probably the average person should. But if I find a cool voice or a good character monologue or a great line that I feel it just really kind of signifies a story beat, I'll make sure I pull out my phone, which most smartphones have some sort of a audio recording feature, and just record myself. That way I have an audio file I can refer back to when I get back to writing my notes into the story. It's a really cool way to make sure you have that at your disposal. That's a really good recommendation.
Yeah, and again, just read read cool things. Adventure modules are great for me. I love collecting them. I have a habit of just buying them and storing them because they have cool artwork, they have cool plot hooks, cool characters. If you ever need something quick and go to, Pathfinder has a whole library of them. D&D 3.5 has a whole library of them. And even, do you remember back in the day those little AEG pamphlet modules?
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I still have a few of those.
I have all of them in PDF. It's great.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I use them all. I sometimes spin one shots just out of some of those, and it's interesting because you can take the ideas and be like, oh, this is a thing about a tavern that it robs. It's the travelers that come through it. The innkeeper robs. That's really cool. But this module's set in a desert and it uses goblins. I don't want to use that. I'll set it in a city and I'll on a dock and in a shady area, and it works just fine. Yeah, and it's oh, there you go. Now you have a plot.
Perfect.
I love reading modules and stuff like that. Oh man, I'm looking at all these. When are you coming to Canada? I guess
whenever Canada invites us, I guess.
Canada, Justin Trudeau.
Exactly. We don't actively seek conventions. How it usually works is conventions contact us about having guest appearances at their events, and then they talk to our agents and see if they can afford appearance fees or scheduling works out well, and that's how the process works. So if you ever want us to come to your area, I recommend communicating with any of your local conventions and recommending us as guests, and that's kind of where they take it from there.
Yeah. Brognard says, do you think that I should kill some player characters so that my players start caring about their PC lives?
I would say don't purposely kill them, but definitely maybe create a situation where they're forced to flee, or they might lose a party member if they're not taking it seriously.
Yeah.
I don't think you should necessarily straight up murder them, because that'll come across. They'll get that, and then once again it instills that GM versus PC attitude, which is fine if that's the kind of game you're running, but in most cases can kind of cause this dissonance between the story. But definitely doesn't hurt to introduce some serious danger that they have to think from a more obtuse standpoint, or lose a friend or two. I love character death as a narrative tool. I think it's fantastic. Vox Machina has narrowly escaped it a number of times, and I know it's only a matter of time, because the stronger they get, the more they start dealing with entities where death is much more of an imminent threat. So it's gonna get real.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think you need to kill a player, but you will be here's what I would suggest. And he says my players are being reckless and on the edge of dying every time, but I guess they're not trading things with enough weight. What I would probably suggest is create an encounter, a really painful encounter, but when you're writing it, make sure you write away so that the players could, in theory, save the player who died. via, I don't know, his soul is trapped in something and they have to go on a quest to get it out. But as long as he's dead, and as long as they have to work to bring him back, they will probably start realizing, oh, if we do this, it'll require a ton of work and we may not be able to get him back next time. Maybe we should rethink things. Yeah,
that's actually a great suggestion. I did that with our a campaign I ran before called the Dragonfall that I co-DM'd with my friend Zach Hanks for a couple years. We had half the party wipe fighting ghouls because in this world necromancy had been abolished for so long that it was basically just a myth. Nobody really believed that necromancy and undead existed still, and they didn't really in the world. And they went to travel to the Shadowfell for the first time and found themselves into a tomb, and it was filled with ghouls. And they were like, "These are weird things. All right, I'll take this one. You take that one." And they just split. As opposed to focus firing, they just each took a ghoul, and within 2 rounds, half the party was paralyzed. And they're like,
"Ghoul touch, man."
Yep, we're
fucking nasty.
And so the 2 survivors ran, or at least one of them ran and grabbed the other, who was screaming, and pulled her out while they had to look behind and watch as the rest of the party was being eaten alive by ghouls.
Oh yeah,
and that definitely instilled the understanding of character death. And so I had them roll new characters who then encountered the party, who lost half of their party, in the Shadowfell as well. And so these kind of 2 halves of now, fractured parties come to form a new one, and then part of their adventure from that point forward was to try and see if there was a way to reclaim the souls and lives of their lost friends. So they had the opportunity to bring their characters back if they really wanted to, or if they really liked their new character, they could continue that path as well. So that's a way to do it.
Yeah, man. Always, like, some enemies are nasty. I've had players get hit by a ghoul touch wand, and they're just sitting there paralyzed for the whole fight.
Yeah.
And they don't know what they think I'm being a dick to them, but nope, it's in the rules.
Yep.
Hitch, by the way, he said we were both officially invited to Norway, so I guess book a flight.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Norway would be awesome.
I've never been to Norway. All right. This is do you know anything about Vampire? Because someone is asking me about the humanity system for Vampire the Masquerade. I have no idea. I've never played it.
I know a little bit. I've dabbled in White Wolf. More strangely enough, more Exalted than anything else. I think the humanity system is great. I like the idea of player characters that aren't necessarily driven by the morality they wrote on paper, but more the fact that the more they embrace what gives them their power, the further away they get from who they want to be. It's that kind of like Spawn type lifestyle where, like, you have all this power at your disposal, but the more you use it, the closer you come to your end, or what will inevitably be a beast you don't approve of becoming. I think it's a great story and a great narrative driving aspect, and that's part of the reason why Vampire has such interesting characters, in my opinion. I wish I had played more of it. My first experience was an unfortunate Vampire LARP circumstance where I didn't know what was going on and suddenly was introduced as the chapter head as a very important NPC. So I was surrounded by 40-plus people trying to plug me for political information, and I had nothing. So I walked away from that a little scared of it, but later had the tabletop experience and enjoyed that. So I thought that's a great system. I'd like to see it get a comeback. I know it kind of lost faith and focus a little bit in the mid-2000s, but I think the newer editions I hear are pretty cool, and I know they're doing some cool stuff soon, so fingers crossed.
Yeah, I never got into Vampire. It was just no one I knew ever really played it or anything like that. Barely anyone around here even played D&D when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Played a lot of Warhammer. I cut my teeth on Warhammer 40k.
Oh yeah.
I see you're a big War Machine guy.
War Machine guy, yeah. I played Fantasy Warhammer back in early 2000, but right as I finished building my competitive Skaven army, they changed the rules and negated half my army. And so Games Workshop kind of pissed me off to never play Warhammer again. And then I got into War Machine a couple years ago, and I actually really, really enjoy it. Yeah,
War Machine's interesting because it's like the same game-ish. You can just play it with a lot less money.
That's what I like about it. Smaller skirmishes, smaller armies. It's great.
Oh man, I used to make money from my Warhammer army by taking, like, people would have their big models, like the ones they just bought, like the big Tyranids and stuff. I'd be like, you cannot put that on the table in just primer. Give it to me. I'll take a weekend. I'll paint it for you.
That's awesome.
It's just I just have OCD. I couldn't let them play those things without being painted.
I can understand that. Yeah, I can't play or use any of my War Machine minis until I've painted it. Like that's just a rule of mine. I will not use it. I will not put it on the table until I finish painting it. I feel weird.
Yeah, man. I'm so into, like, I see all like you have a ton of minis, and I would totally love to get into D&D minis, and especially back when Reaper was doing their Kickstarters for the bones stuff. Like, I'd love to buy a ton of those because some of them look great and fun to paint and stuff. But I have no like. I wish I had a use for physical stuff these days. Oh man, yeah, I'm so glad I don't, because I would be more broke than I am.
No, totally, and the only reason I have so many minis is because I've been collecting over time. Like,
yeah.
Since 2004, when they first began, or around then when they began to release the plastic minis, I just slowly collected over time. And then when this show started, and then people started sending them to me, it got ridiculous, which is awesome.
Yeah,
the obsession continues. But also, I mean, because we have such a large party in our D&D game, the mini combat is more necessary.
Oh yeah,
for us, so the players have more of an understanding of spatial awareness in the battlefield and tactics. If it's smaller parties, if it's like 3, 4, maybe 5 players, 4 preferably, then I kind of prefer more theater of the mind combat. I think it flows narratively better. But for our game, for Critical Role, the minis are kind of a necessity. So I enjoy them then.
See, I'm a map guy, and I've tried and I've done theater of the mind combat, but the thing that's weird about it is everyone says like they're so into it and it's works great. Every time I do it, someone asks for clarification as to where something is or like how something, and I have to draw it anyway. So it's like I might as well just have this prepped beforehand.
Yeah, for those questions, I usually just take dice on the table and just kind of give general spatial awareness based on distance and relativity there. But it does happen. It's going to happen regardless, especially if you're doing theater of mind.
Yeah.
But it certainly beats having to spend countless hours and countless amounts of money to prepare for combat when it's not absolutely necessary.
Speaking of maps, this is an unrelated topic, but it is a funny story. This was months ago. It was probably about 6 months ago. During the show, back when you guys were still doing like gifts on air. Someone had seen the map stuff I do, and they had contacted me. They're like, "Hey, I want to commission a map so I can send it to the Critical Role guys. He wanted to commission the entire Grayskull Keep, like all 3 floors, with the grounds in like a 1-inch battle grid. He wanted the whole thing for you guys to have it." And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be really cool. This is how much it's going to cost you." And he was like, "No."
Yeah, dude. Well, no, and that's like an incredible thought on that. Whoever that was out there, thank you for the thought. That's amazing. But yeah, no, that's also very time consuming and expensive too. So
I know. I told him, I'm like, this is going to be like a month, maybe 2 of work. Like it's going to cost some money, and he quickly backed out after that.
That's okay, but it's the thought that matters, and I appreciate that. Whoever you were, thank you.
Oh, trust me, I would have loved to have made it and just send it to you guys, and then I can be like, "Hey, I made that," and it's on TV. It's on TV. No, Your One Nightmare asked, and I wanted to ask this question for a little while because it's relevant to me. Have you ever played Tomb of Horrors?
A long time ago, and it was terrifying. And I love it, and I want to try and revisit it sometime soon.
Oh man, I would love to DM you through Tomb of Horrors. It's one of my everyone fights me on this. It's my favorite module. I love it so much.
Well, it's such a wonderful time capsule for like the pinnacle of dungeon crawling, in my opinion, because it's like grand rewards and the ever present opportunity to just misstep once and be dead.
Yeah.
In clever and creative and weird ways, and I really, really loved that idea as like a weekend game mechanic.
Have you read it as a DM?
I've read through it.
Yeah.
Since then, just for fun on the side, and I love a lot of the mechanics and the ideas behind it. I'd love to see it like revisited or redone. Whether it be like on DM's Guild, if anybody decides to take it from there or something. But man, it's so different than a lot of the other story based content out there, and it is just a general fearful. It reminds me of like a lot of JRPGs when they have that like special secret dungeon in the game.
Oh yeah,
they're all
definitely.
max level. Like, oh, here's 100 levels of the hardest things you'll ever face, and a super secret boss that's near impossible to defeat. Like, it's that kind of a feel to it, and if that appeals to you, the Tomb of Horrors is like straight up fun. So yeah, I love it.
You didn't? Then I'm assuming you didn't see, because the reason I love it so much because if you've read it as a DM, then like just that first hallway It's such a masterclass in dungeon design. Like, everything that you could ever want to teach players about a about your dungeon, Gary managed to fit in that one hallway. There's pits that are where you expect them to be and where you don't expect them to be. There's things that you kind of, the players get confused about, and they're like, maybe it's this way, maybe it's just so good. Like, every aspect of it is just such great writing. And I read this article by what the hell was his name? John Wick. He's an old school RPG writer, and he wrote a whole article about how it's the worst thing ever written. And I'm like, I agree with every point you're putting out if this was 1977. But if you play it now, like, in 1977, it was a thing that you would just drop on your players and they would not know what's going on. They're like, oh, this is just a dungeon. And then they die horribly. But if you drop it on your players, like, no one goes into it now without knowing what they're getting into. You know, it's a legend, and it's one of the things that is so fun when I run it, is I love to tell players, everything that you think you've heard, and every legend and story, like, in your gaming career that you've heard about this dungeon, assume that your character has heard those and thinks they're true. And that will make going into this all the better.
Yeah, it'd be hard to throw into a campaign because it is so dangerous. But, like, if you all know what you're getting into, if it's like, you know, just a one-off, get in the dungeon and try and make it through, which is kind of what it was originally designed for anyway, then yeah, I think it's a good time.
I want to take a question that someone asked on Twitter. They said, Danny Smolensky says, could you guys talk in more detail about scaling encounters to the party? What are your processes for it? Okay.
Well, first and foremost, and this is kind of a good general rule, and I hope to do some more detailed stuff with future GM tips videos, but with your party size increasing, let's say, like for us, I roll with 7 PCs sometimes, and that's a lot of people, sometimes 8 with a guest. It doesn't necessarily mean you want to just increase the hit points of the creature, because all it does is lengthen combat into a slog. Mm-hmm. I tend to err more on the side of increasing damage, because you still maintain the threat of danger, but without turning it into just a hit point bag, as well as adding abilities that can hit multiple PCs at once. You know, you can always customize creatures so that, you know, if it only attacks one guy and you're versus 7 players, that's only one dude it's really threatening, while the rest of the party's threatening it. Maybe giving it an ability to do a sweep attack, or it can throw out tendrils at multiple enemies, or it can break the ground around it, causing 3 people to take, you know, AoE damage. Find ways to customize where it can affect more creatures at once with its turn, as opposed to just giving it more hit points. You know, having lower hit points and high damage means it still has the same amount of threat per se, but without it having to take that much longer.
Have you ever considered? I don't know if you've ever tried it. It actually works for me behind the scenes because players have no idea what's going on. Taking an enemy and just basically throwing the concept of hit points out the window, and just saying, like, this creature takes X number of hits to die. So, like, a mook, like a little kind of goblin style enemy might take 1 hit. You know, player hits it once, it's out. And you can let them roll damage and feel like they're, you know, one-shotting or whatever. Like maybe a thug, like a gang member or something, mm-hmm. or a cultist might take 2 hits, and then like a bigger enemy might take 4 hits.
Yeah, I did that a bit with the minion mechanic, which was in 4th edition.
Yeah, I love that so much.
It was one of the things they really did good with 4th edition for encounters for that system. I did it also a little bit. I had some bosses in the past, back when Stone Skin worked how it did in the older editions, where it would just deflect a certain number of physical hits before it dissipated. Yeah. And so I'd have certain enemies that, while it wasn't necessarily that spell, that mechanic was their protection. So yeah, it wasn't a hit point based thing. They were, you know, a putz once you broke through the shield, but it took X amount of hits to get through that arcane protection before they were vulnerable, and then, you know, 15 hit points and they were easy to take down. I haven't incorporated it recently, partially because I haven't thought about it. Yeah, but that's a really cool way to do certain encounters. I like that mix up. That's a cool theory.
Yeah, it's interesting because the way, like, obviously as a DM it saves math. Like I don't want to really calculate like, oh, this, because let's say you have like a little goblin or something, whatever, just a little mook, and the player hits it, and the thing has 7 HP, but the player does 6 damage. Like, do you really care that much if this thing stays in the fight 1 round? Like, the only thing it's going to do is extend the combat by 1 round at minimum, you know? And
Yeah.
one of the things that I've learned as I've gone on is I want to try and condense combats. I want to try and get them done more quickly, because the longer a combat drags out, the more likely it is to sort of drag in the middle, and the players are going to get bored by the end, especially if it turns into a slugfest. So what I like to do, especially with a big enemy like a spellcaster or something, or I don't know, any kind of monster that's really interesting, what I like to do is I like to let the players wail on it, for their entire turn. They can get a couple hits in, and then however many hits they manage to land in the turn, unless it's like, say I give this thing 5 hits, let's say they do 5 hits in their initiative order. What I'll do is I'll make it last 1 round longer, just so it has enough time to do something really cool in combat, and then it'll die. When the next person hits it.
That's totally a way to do it. I like that. I will say, when you mentioned the 6 points of damage to a 7 hit point goblin, I immediately saw this one goblin that takes the hit, backs up, wipes blood from its mouth, throws its weapons to the ground, takes its like shirt off, and just like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah.
So I do like some of the narrative implications that can happen occasionally with it, but from a universal standpoint, yeah, I definitely think cleaner going forward. But I don't know. I'm always going to want that one little survivor goblin to be just a little tougher than the rest and really think he's unstoppable, because he took that one to that action. It's like, what? I'm still standing.
Yeah, no, it's you can, like, if it's one of those things where you think like if a combat's going to be over real quick, it's because if you're not tracking hit points, like, it's a great way to sort of just make it last a little bit longer. Because let's say you have a combat where no players got hit, right? Maybe you're like, it feels too easy. I kind of want these things to stick around a little bit longer, so they might get a chance to land a hit or something on a player. That's that's a thing that, again, and I know the reason I bring it up to you is because I know at least I have no idea what you're doing behind the screen, but at least on the show it seems like you're really into like tracking stats pretty exactly, like hit point values and stuff.
I do for 2 reasons. One, because I have the internet very closely watching and calculating everything that happens.
Yeah.
So,
oh yeah.
And a lot of people actually have a lot of fun doing that and kind of reverse engineering encounters and figuring out stuff. Crit roll stats on Tumblr does an amazing job of that, and it's been kind of a fun game for a lot of people watching to do that as well. So I wouldn't want to rob that of them. And at the same time, there is a certain level of tension, especially during boss fights, when you don't know who's going to get the killing blow, and it gets down to those final numbers, and you're getting the final riddle. You're like, who's gonna get the lottery hit? Who's gonna get the final hit? So at that, for me, there's something cool about setting that. Plus, it means that some encounters that I expect to be more dangerous, I get steamrolled with, and I never want to rob the players of doing a good job or having a good round of luck. If they end up just tearing through an encounter that I expected more out of, I'd be like, oh, well, fair play to the players. Conversely, some encounters will come in and be harder hitting than I thought beforehand, and the players have to shape up and pay attention real fast. So I have a few reasons why I stick to the numbers pretty stringently, but I don't necessarily think that's the right way to do it by any means. And actually, your format, like you said, with the number of hits, and like I said, I enjoy the minions aspect of 4th edition rules a lot for that reason. So it really depends on what your DM style and what your preference is for combat. I think my players like the hit point value as well.
Yeah.
It helps them really kind of equate and feel the weight of those really, really heavy, hard hits. Like when Grog does like he rolls a 12 on his Great Axe attack with his modifiers while raging. He wants to know that extra damage really counts. So.
Oh yeah, and then
so,
and you could of course just act like it does. Like you could be like, oh, you did 40 damage. That's really cool. I'm writing that down right now on a piece of paper. I'm totally not pretending.
Yeah. Or maybe I'll count that as 2 hits. So that's totally a way you can incorporate that in. Yeah.
No, it's interesting. Again, it's interesting to me only because I've run with a lot of players who will kind of get lost in the combat, and the numbers really matter a lot less. But also when you're streaming, especially when you're streaming for like a 3-hour time block, it's like, okay, I kind of got to get this encounter over. I want to make sure at least one cool thing happens, and then let's just wrap it up.
Yeah, totally.
How do you, this is a question by CrankDog47 in chat, he says, how do you go about rewarding XP for non-combat stuffs? And also I wanted to ask about how you just do XP in general. Do you do it, like, as per the book, like, by challenge rating?
I take that into account for combat circumstances, since I customize a lot of creatures. A lot of times I'll scale that level by kind of an arbitrary percentage that I think I've increased the power level to certain creatures. Or conversely, if it's a really powerful creature that I want to pull down more to their level, same way. Like, so I there's no like real specific formula. A lot of it's just kind of taking what's there and adjusting it by what feels right, you know. And I've been playing long enough, right? I have a decent feel for that balance of experience presentation. So yeah, I don't follow the book stringently. I just use that as more of a guideline and a way to go for it, and then customize from there. For non-combat, I have a formula, and I've posted a few times. I'll have to look it up again because I don't have it off the top of my head, not memorized. But I for every cool moment, every cool character moment, a great RP sequence, or a really, really clever way that a player completes a puzzle, or you know, succeeds at a social encounter, or bypasses a major challenge or danger without combat, I make a little tick mark next to their name behind my DM screen. That way it doesn't distract me. I don't have to do any math and calculate at the moment. I just tick mark and then continue with the game. Then at the end of each session, I go back with those tick marks and I plug them into an equation I made just based on their character level, so it scales as they scale. And then that extra experience goes in to their character advancement. That's why we have multiple sessions with no combat, but the characters are still advancing by making cool character choices and really driving the narrative along in character, and they're still being rewarded for that. Maybe not equal, maybe not as much experience as combat would be, but still a sizable chunk where the advancement is still progressing through those non-combat based encounters and sessions. But yeah, that's generally how I do it.
Yeah, I the only thing I'll add is I don't use experience. I tried to a long time ago. I remember I used to keep a notepad document of like every goblin was 50 experience, and it's like at a certain point I'm like I don't want to check this anymore, and I don't want to add all these numbers. So I just like, and also the thing that's weird to me is like if you're doing an experience track, like an actual track, okay, you get 2,000 experience, you get to level 2, right? And then you're giving them experience for every fight. To me, my thought has always been, well, then that means I'm limiting the amount of time I have to tell this story.
Right, yeah.
You know, because I'm giving them experience every fight. I need to, you know, when they hit a certain level, they're going to either be too powerful for the story that is being told, or they're going to be, you know, or I have to keep them fighting things just to keep up with the enemies.
Right. Which you know, once again brings us to the point where if that does happen, then it's a little more effort to then customize the encounters and the creatures to match that power level as you watch it progress. If I had the opportunity to go back, because I've been doing experience this whole time, and it's kind of what I'm used to and what the players are used to, and they like seeing number values show up in their email I send them with, you got this much experience last session, now you're this level. You know, my players tend to like that. I prefer the milestone advancement system, really, where you can play through a whole story, and then once you hit a significant story beat or a major resolution to a story element, then everyone advances together. I think that's a very, very good system and a much easier system to keep track of. I might do that for the next round of campaign storytelling over this one. But for now, I'll stick with this. This is what I've been doing from the beginning. It's what the players know.
And I actually wanted to comment on this because I was just typing something in chat and someone says, this guy sounds like the laziest DM ever. He says, oversimplifying complicated and important game mechanics. I don't think that experience and hit points are really all that important, because I think, to me, I'm a storyteller. I like telling a cool story. And I think, a lot of times, just, numbers like experience sometimes get in the way of that.
Yeah, and there are many great RPG systems that are even diceless, or it's all about the narrative and justifying success versus failure based on the narrative as opposed to there being numbers, and they work great. Like the Amber diceless role-playing system is great for that. Mm-hmm. I disagree with that comment. I see what they're saying, and from some DM standpoints, those that are very numbers-oriented or love systems and need systems to really build a story, I can understand where that perspective would come from, and that's nothing knocking their way of playing the game. But I don't see it as a sign of being lazy, just a way of making sure you have the time and energy to focus on the things that are important to you and how you want to drive the narrative and story and experience.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note, like, we were just talking about HP and experience, and, like, we both presented why we do things the way we do, and it's like, we do it because it works for us, and it helps us provide the experience to the players that we want to provide. And like I think, and that's what I try and tell anyone who wants to get into DMing and who's here to listen to DM topics. Is like there is no right way. Everyone's gonna find
right way.
Yeah, everyone's gonna find a way that works for you, and everyone is going to like. Maybe you love keeping track of experience because you think that it's more fair, but maybe you hate keeping track of, I don't know, situational bonuses like flanking or something like that. Like who knows? It's everyone has their own thing.
Exactly. Everyone has their own way of doing it, and none of it's the wrong way, except for maybe like being a complete asshole and just trying to get rid of your player's good time. Mm-hmm. Maybe don't do that so much. But like as far as techniques go, everyone finds their own technique, and everyone has their own way of doing it, and everyone has their own way of running the game. And the way I run my game is vastly different from how like the real role play guys in West Marches run their game, or how Mark Holmes runs his game for High Rollers, or how you run your game. And all these campaigns are so different in how they tell the story and how they run the system, and that's what makes them so unique. And so what's so awesome about RPGs is you have a wholly different experience from Dungeon Master to Dungeon Master, and they're all correct and they're all cool in their own way. And that's why I love role-playing games as a as a game mechanic and system. I love that it allows people to create customized different experiences from table to table every time.
Yeah, and that's why I love having a show like this, because every DM brings their own perspective, and every DM is different. And I've talked to so many different people, and it's so like every time I get a chance to share ideas that I've never thought about, and it's like maybe I can provide something, an interesting way of looking at something they've never thought about.
Yeah,
and
we all learn from each other. We all learn from each other, and I've learned a hell of a lot from watching other people DM, people that DM for me growing up, and people that do their shows on stream their games online, both within our Critter community and on the larger scale as well. Like we're all trying to improve our game and improve ourselves as storytellers, and what better way to do that than to see what other people are doing and seeing what you really like and what works in that, and adopting those elements, and conversely teaching and showing others what things you like about how you do it, and maybe they pick up tricks as well. It's this wonderful kind of community of people just helping each other improve. It's really cool.
Yeah, ask anyone who's an artist, and they'll tell you the way that you improve is you find people that inspire you, and you steal the things that you like from how they do it, and you make your own style out of all the things that you like, and and then you will have something completely different. I think that's a really, really good point to kind of bring the discussion down on, because we are coming up on 11 o'clock, and while I would absolutely love to keep Matt here all night and just talk D&D stuff, I'm not that mean, and I know he's got stuff to do.
It's all good. Well, we'll just have to have another hangout session in a few months.
I will absolutely keep you to that.
Perfect.
So before we bounce out of here, I do want to do some last quick announcements before we wrap things up. First of all, thank you so much to everyone in chat. I didn't want to say this because I don't know, it felt so self-aggrandizing, but I have a tiny little Twitch channel that I started with some friends a while ago, and somehow all of you guys have made this the top viewed D&D show on a Tuesday night. Like, you guys are so great, and I appreciate the support so much. Thank you to every single person who followed. I'm going to read off all of your names at some point because you're great. You can, if you want to see more D&D content, we play every Sunday on this channel, live D&D, and also I show up on a couple other places. I just finished up a campaign. I finished up Reign of Winter Season 1 on Encounter Roleplay. That was 8 episodes long. I had a great cast, great players, and a lot of fun. And we're starting, if you see the schedule, where is it? It's down there. There's a mystery show starting this Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern on Encounter Roleplay. I don't know what we're playing. I haven't been told. But I will be there playing it with Trainsy TV and Kira from Subpar Mediocre Gamers, and they're great people. And also I play Call of Cthulhu with probably the best streaming cast that I've ever played with on Encounter Roleplay on Wednesday at 4 p.m. It's fantastic. You guys want to be there. It's an amazing Call of Cthulhu campaign. And Will, the DM from Encounter Roleplay, he creates each session before we play it live with chat. So they create some amazing horror stuff, and I love it. Also, if you guys loved this, if you liked the show, I don't want to say if you loved it, but if you liked the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon. You can just hit !Patreon, and Dice Thulu will give that link to you. Every dollar that you guys pledge goes right back to the show. The current patrons are supporting our Twitch Turbo subscription and some other stuff, and it just helps make all this content better, and it helps me provide awesome content like Fuzzy Dice to you guys. That's all. That's really all my announcements. I want to thank so much. I want to thank my new best friend Matt Mercer for hanging out with me. Matt, thank you for me and everyone in chat.
No, it was an absolute pleasure. Seriously, I've been wanting to set this up with you for a while, and great discussion, great questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to all of them, but if you didn't get to your questions, save it for the next time we hang out.
Yeah.
For another one of our upcoming Q&As. I love these discussions. This is where my passion is. So thank you for having me. And yeah, guys, if you haven't checked out Critical Role, Thursday nights on Geek and Sundries, Twitch stream at 7 p.m. Pacific. And we'll be at Gen Con doing our second and biggest live show on that Saturday, which is going to be crazy, go nuts. And if you're on Gen Con, please come up and say hi, come to panels and shake my hand. I'd love to meet as many of you as I possibly can while we're there. So thank you again for having me. Have a wonderful night, guys, and we'll see you online.
Yes, and sorry, I was typing. Before we bounce out of here, as always, don't let Dice Thulu get his tentacles on you, because as always, you guys know he gets pretty handsy. We will see you right here tomorrow. Well, not right here tomorrow, but we will see you right here on Sunday for Jade Region. And Matt's doing a scary face, channeling Freddie Mercury.
I realized that in the time we've been doing this discussion, my background has just gotten darker and darker, and now I'm just in this dark void, and you can't help it not get a little creepy.
All right, so we will see you guys next week. Thank you so much to everyone.